Before he started the class, I went over and was talking to him about that. And he said it was, in fact, a fact from ornithology, the study of birds, that a hummingbird will not nest in an enclosed cavity of any kind. So all Jerry is doing is just presenting them with the opportunity just in case they want to use one. Otherwise, they're just hanging on the Christmas tree, set in a windowsill, just put it around somewhere to look at. Since I made those with Jerry, I've been making different ones. I do beads on them. Yeah, if you hung it outside, it very well might be a mosquito house. Not much else is going to use it. That is all that they amount to. About 5.5 inches tall, and 5 to 5.5 inches. I start with the 2-inch wood blank. Get that on the overhead. Where's the camera? There it is. And this is just my little storyboard. They're 5 to 5.5 inches tall. 1.5 inches from the top. Drill a 7/8 inch hole for the entry hole. Come down 2.5 inches. Drill a 1/4 inch hole for the perch. Now, whether a hummingbird will ever use a perch or not, I don't know, but they've got a perch on there just in case he wants it. But we're going to hang them up inside the house anyway, so the hummingbird's not going to get to them. With the 2x2 block, I drill the Forstner bit down the inside, 1.5 inch hole down the middle. Doesn't leave very much for wall thickness, but I'm just going to turn it down. I'm going to turn it down to a thin wall anyway. And once you've got the Forstner bit drilled down through the center, and I just go just below the perch hole. It doesn't really need to go any deeper than that. It's okay. Yes. Well, I do that on the lathe. And it's slow, cranky, in and out, which is cumbersome. Jerry Mesemer, when I visited with him in June of last year, he had made around 5,500. He had a lady come down the mountain. As he tells the story, a lady came down the mountain. She had this little object. She called it a hummingbird house, and she wanted him to make about 20 for her. So he thought in his mind, well, she wants 20. She'll probably want more than that. So he made 40 of them. And she came a couple weeks later and she bought 6. She didn't want to pay for them. She wanted them turned, but she didn't want to pay for them. And she only bought 6. So his club was getting ready to do a fundraiser for hospice, and they decided they would turn hummingbird houses. And they raised right around $3,600 for hospice that weekend, selling hummingbird houses at $40 each. And then months later, there was another fellow that was in the club that started demonstrating at different clubs, and it kind of spread around through the area around South Carolina. And someone from the South Carolina State Magazine got a hold of one, and they liked it. They had one of their board meetings or executive meetings for the magazine, and they decided they would go to Jerry and find out if he would make them for the magazine. So they went to him, talked to him about it. Well, how many do you want to start with? We think we want 200 to start. He said, I'm not into production turning. So he talked to his son and talked to his wife. There were steps that they could do to make it go a lot faster. So a couple weeks later, he talked to him at the magazine again. He said he would make them for the magazine. And as of June of last year, he had made over 5,500 for the magazine. He calls it pocket change. It's $30 a house going to the magazine, and then he's up around in sales elsewhere where he's selling them up to $45 each, around $1,500 or $2,000. So he makes a lot of them. He's got 3 grocery carts. He's got blanks in the cart. He chucks it on the lathe, bores the hole, does the 2 entry holes, goes in the basket. When he gets 2 baskets completely full, then he goes to the next step. When the baskets are full again, then he goes step by step at a time. He'll take one day just prepping blanks, another day drill in the blanks, another day turn in the blanks, and then make the roof for them. I've sold around 60 of them at $45 each without advertising. I just put them on Facebook. One thing you'll have to make is a little jam chuck so that you're capable of turning. Just slide it on, bring up the tailstock. Give it a little pressure, doesn't take a whole lot. And then all we have to do is turn it around. If I was venturesome, I'd take John Horn's lead. I'd just pick up a skew and do it with the skew. I use it mostly for a paint can opener. I just said that to aggravate John. He knows better. And we're just going to take the spindle gouge, round it out. I guess kind of boring just going back and forth. I have two ways of knowing what my wall thickness is. One is this little ledge on the jam chuck, and the other one is just look at the hole. That hole will tell you how thick it is. And my hummingbirds like it nice and thin. Looking right so far, John? You should get up here and do this with the skew. That'd be thin enough. And if I put a little feature down at the bottom, I really don't need any other tool. I just go right in here and put a little step in here. See if I can figure out how to use a chatter tool. Just want some variation on that bottom. I don't want the bottom smooth. That should be good. Now I'm doing one thing right here wrong. Don't sand it in that direction. Make sure you reverse it, because you're sanding that direction, your finger catches right there in that hole. It will hurt and it will separate your nail just a little bit. I haven't done that myself, but I did see it. Pardon? 312, whatever it is. It might be 400. I've got a neighbor that sells sandpaper. That's his business, but he doesn't have any free samples. The only thing he sells is giant rolls for commercial use. Everything he sells is in large rolls. That's good. I like that. And that's thin enough. And then we can decorate it. Shall we decorate it? This is just acrylic paint made by U.S. Art Supply. And it's ready made for the airbrush. So you just pour in what you want to use. Let the compressor catch up. I'm getting some runs in places. Yeah. I know Jerry Mesemer is using the dyes from a water-based dye from that stuff that Nick Chromacraft, that Nick Agar sells, and it works real well. It doesn't gum up the brush at all. It's water soluble, cleans real easy. The acrylic colors are real easy to change as far as cleaning. It cleans up with water, and then use the airbrush cleaner. Just run some of that through. Over to a little orange. Not putting out very much paint. I'm not what you would call an expert with the airbrush. I mainly just use it for broad coverage, and that's all I've ever used them for. See how slow it would go. Just a little bit of a shadow right up under the roof. When I'm doing it at home, I'll do about 20 at a time. I'll do the body, I'll do the sanding, I'll put a sealer on it and then set them aside, and then bring them up to do the paint, and do the paint all in one setting, do all of them. It's airbrush cleaner, and with the using the acrylics, that's all I have to do with it. After I use it 3 or 4 dozen times, now maybe probably a dozen to 2 dozen times, I'll have to take the brush apart and clean it. Now we're just going to use it for air source. Permanent ink made by Bombay. It's supposed to be everlasting and fade resistant. I'll just put a little dot on there and move it. Move it however it wants to move. I don't think 2 of these ever come out the same. They come out relatively close, but they don't come out the same. And just whatever color suits your fancy. Was iridescent blue. I bought iridescent blue by mistake, and it doesn't work nearly as good as just regular blue. Just blow it till it looks dry. Red, blue, green. Orange. the ink, Bombay. It's supposed to be permanent, UV resistant, fade resistant. It's one of the archival inks, permanent. The metallic luster. This happens to be the silver. Just a little bit on the finger. All I want to do is where that was roughed up with the chatter tool. All I'm doing is just touching the top surface. And then that is done. Outside of taking the high gloss lacquer to it, once you put the high gloss lacquer on there, those colors kind of pop out. They look, to me, they look best with the high gloss on them. You wouldn't need to, but you could put a satin or a semi-gloss on it. Yeah, I've got my big vacuum hood sitting back behind here, and I've got some of that cheesecloth, and I put a piece of cheesecloth across the front of it. And then when I'm spraying it, just pulls it up into that cheesecloth rather than clogging up the filter. But I've got about a 20-foot line of that hose, and most of the spray that's going to go inside the vacuum is going to adhere to the hose inside, rather than get all the way to the filter. Or that's what I'm hoping anyway. Is done. I don't paint the bottoms, just leave them like that. And then we need to make a top for it. Just about any wood will do to make the top. The top just needs to be bigger than the house, something larger in diameter. So I've turned this piece of walnut down, and that's still pretty big for the house, so I can take that down about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. The reason I need that space in between is so that I can make sure that this tool goes in between. You don't want to bind it on either side. That's going to be tight there, but I can increase it. That's a sizing tool. That's the part where I put the tenon on the roof so that it fits down inside. I set this to the right size, I lock it down, and then I don't change it. That's made by Robert Sorby. Always turn the lathe off before you move the tool rest, right? Just making some distance in there. That's the size I want for the roof, and that's considerably large there. Take it down. This walnut is really dry and chippy. It does more flaking than it does cutting. See if I'm anywhere close. I don't think so. So now the tenon's done. Then I can make each one the same size. Gradually get that down to a point. I guess that golf ball was made to come off. A bit of a shear scrape on that to try to get it a little smoother. Try that chatter tool again. There's the burr. Need a lot of practice with the chatter tool. That's enough though. I haven't used the chatter tool for years. Get some of those fuzzies off in there. To drill that hole for the eye screw, trying to get that little tiny bit started in a flat spot is difficult. So I just let that point make a little ramp, and I can screw the eyelet right in there after I drill it. There he is, a little micro drill. And my little eyelet will just go right in there. I don't know why the roof has to be black, but I've been making all the roofs black. And if you want to dye something black and you want it to really be black, the leather dye, it's Fibry, F-I-E-B-I-R-Y, black, that makes sure it's the pro dye. The dye from Hobby Lobby and Michaels, which is their leather dye, is not the same dye. It will not dye it as black. Pardon? Uh-huh. Yeah. That's where that's where this is from. Yes, it's leather dye. And it dries fast. And it's permanent. been playing with a lot of different color combinations. If you're familiar with the Gary Lowe's Cosmic Cloud, I've used the Josiah iridescent paints and done the house as a cosmic cloud. And then I've used the just the acrylics out of a tube. I just put a little bit on I use a little saucer, put a little dab on there, and then scrunch up a piece of towel and dab it on there and start going across the plate till it's not putting out very much paint. And then just dab randomly and go stack up about 5 or 6 different colors, and then shoot lacquer over the top of that, and it dries quick. Snug fit. Just a little bit of pop to it. And that's done. Well, thank you. I've had a lot of fun doing these. I've made them so many different ways as far as decorating on the outside. I broke one yesterday. I left it a little bit thick and was using a rotary tool just to kind of rough up the outside. And I went all the way through it. Yeah, ebony pin blanks. I've got the Brad Point bit set from Rockler, and that 1/4 inch drill bit is not 1/4 inch. And I'll glue the perch in, glue the top on, and it's done. I'll show you one little trick when I glue that eyelet in, when I glue the roof on. Something that to me is important. I want that eyelet lined up with the face of it. So when I put a ribbon through it to hang it on the tree, it will hang straight instead of sideways. If I put the eyelet going this way, put a ribbon through it, it's going to hang that way. So keep the eyelet going forward, and that way when you put the ribbon and you hang it, it will hang like that. Got medium. Now there's something wrong with this glue bottle because it's shaking. They didn't used to do that. Pardon? Oh, it has matured, that's it. Yeah, that's done. I've had fun doing these things. When I make them so fast that I just go one after the other. I line up my thing for the roof, and I'll do, depending on the length of the stock I'm using, I'll make 3 to 4 out of one set. Just turn it, put the tenon on there, and once I shape it off, drill the hole, then that's done. I can go 1, 2, 3, or 4, however long the stick is. Probably the best thing that I can show you how the whole demo is this sizing tool. After I got this, I made 5 toothpick holders, and I used this to cut the tenon for the top, and every one of them came out just right. Just a little bit loose. They were all cut exactly the same. It's a little difficult to get that set to the right size, so what I'll do, I'll work on the end of the piece and just make a little tenon on the top, and take my work piece and work it on there. When it fits right, that's where I tighten it down good, and then don't have to change it. Carbide cutter. It's suggested to use a bedan, which a bedan is the same size as the hole, but that carbide cutter on the tip is bigger than the hole in the thing. So I had to take that off, put it through, and put the cutter back on. And that's how I got it through there. It's been a good tool for me. Just a very short learning curve to it. And simply bring it down on the piece and just rotate it. When you go halfway, you're done. If you keep trying to work it, you can dig it in further, but just make sure that you've got the width on both sides so that that thing will fit, because if it grabs on either side, it's going to jump. So just make sure that you've got room on both sides for it to go through.